Hey guys, I just finished watching The Flesh, and the Devil. Great film. For it being a 1959 movie, I was actually really impressed with it. It had a lot of elements that I absolutely loved. The cinematography, editing, everything was fantastic. Actors was way over the top, but what can you expect from a 60s movie? I mean, or 1959 movie. It was enjoyable. I loved it. The story was engaging, and I didn't want it to end. Actually, when it ended, I was like, no, there needs to be more. So I mean, I'll talk about that in review if that's effective or not. If it leaves it like, if I think it feels like it left a cliffhanger. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. But overall, I liked it. It was a great film, and I am very glad I watched it. So let's move on to the review.
Hey guys, I'm Ben Coleman, back another week to talk about another film. This week we're talking about The World, the Flesh, and the Devil, which is another unique film made in the 60s that a little bit older, but it tackles a lot of issues dealing with race, and it is about a story dealing with a miner who gets stuck in a mine, then comes out realizing that he is in a post-apocalyptic world. Crazy, right? Yeah, I didn't think that they would pull it off for this old of a film, but they did really well with it. Now, when this miner comes up from the world and realizes that everybody's gone, he does get to meet two other people. He meets a girl who he has a little bit of a romantic relationship with. She falls more in love with him than he does. He becomes really worried about it when another guy comes in and kind of puts a wedge in between them. And the story is really about these three. It kind of makes it more of a drama movie, and it makes it a really interesting story to follow along with. Now, while this film is older, I will say that I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I mean, it's a film that many people don't really think about. I mean, this movie had a budget of over $1 million, and it did not do great in the box office. It actually suffered a loss, and that's mainly due, I think, due to its racial issues, and just it wasn't a big popular genre at the time. But this really set, for me, I think I could say that this probably was one of the movies that maybe set a bar as to what sci-fi movies should be like. And I think a lot of movies back then that were made around that time or afterwards kind of took that as a role model to make their sci-fi movies. It was more of an experimental film, and I could kind of see that because they use a lot of great cinematography. The direction was different than most movies of that era, and it's really interesting to see where sci-fi movies really got their start from. Now, because of the cinematography from Harold Maserati, I will say that it was really impressive for a movie back then. I mean, you had shots that were keeping you engrossed. There was a couple of shots in the middle where I was kind of falling out. But there's a lot of shots that keep you engaged, and a lot of establishing shots of New York City in this post-apocalyptic world, because you're in a world where there's nobody around, and I think the cinematography really handled well. Now, a little background about this movie. This was an idea that was originally supposed to start in 1940, but the project just didn't go through. They tried again in 1945. It didn't go well then. It didn't really get its start until Harry Belafonte. He was the actor that kind of co-produced this and kind of helped the film get back on its feet. And I think that's kind of what gave the movie its authentic appeal. I mean, again, it didn't do great in the box office. Now, does it deserve to get praise? Yes, I think that this film was very underappreciated, and for when it was made, of course. But I think many people missed out on a great sci-fi movie for back then. I mean, it had everything that people wanted. It was a drama. It was romance. It was a sci-fi movie. It was everything that people were loving in that era. Now, I will say, because of watching this movie for the first time, I would say that I relate with older movies than I do newer ones. I mean, I relate with Back to the Future. I relate with that movie more than I do current sci-fi movies. I mean, the older Star Wars movies, I relate with those more than I relate to newer ones. So I think watching older movies is a great way for me to kind of expand my horizons about where sci-fi was and how it got its start. Because you wouldn't have those newer sci-fi movies without the older ones. I think this movie kind of fits that genre and fits that kind of circle of movies that started the whole sci-fi genre. Now, let's get to my problems with this movie, which I don't have a lot of problems with this, but the one thing I gotta talk about is the acting. The actress that plays the girl, Inger Stevens, she put kind of what I would say an overreaction to her acting. Maybe tone it down a little bit, but that was movies in the 50s and 60s. Like, you're gonna have that overreaction in acting. It didn't set me off from the movie. I just think that it could have been toned down a little bit. Maybe direction could have been toned down a little bit. But the other actors, I think, did a phenomenal job, and given that there's only 3 actors in this movie. Harry Belafonte, of course, the person who co-produced this with his company, and also Mel Ferrer, and all 3 of these actors did a great job. Now, the other part is maybe the plot. I feel like in Act 3, it kind of just rushed everything. That's a problem. It's not to say that it makes it a terrible movie. It's great. There is a conflict in this movie near the end, but that's the part that maybe I don't like all too much. I mean, it was rushed and the ending kind of gave a cliffhanger type feel, but I mean, it's just, it's weird to watch, and maybe I don't know why they did it that way. It's a movie in the 50s and 60s. They're not the best, and it was experimental film, and I think for experimental film, they did a really nice job. Now, there's a few plot holes that I kind of thought about. I'm not gonna go into them too much, because if you want to check out this movie, it's kind of considers it spoilers, but it's whatever. If you want to watch it. And do I recommend this movie? Of course I do. I mean, I think this is great for any sci-fi lover to appreciate this film. I mean, it sets a mold as to what sci-fi movies should have been like, and I think it set the future for what they are now. And if you like any of the post-apocalyptic type movies, you'll like this. I mean, it's very interesting to see how these movies have evolved. And I look forward, if you want to watch this movie, leave in the comments about what you thought. I mean, it's great. I think that many people are going to love it. But that's my quick review. Like I said, I love this movie, and one thing I didn't do last week is give a score. I usually do that in my head when I'm thinking about a movie. I would give The World, the Flesh, and the Devil an 8 out of 10 and would highly recommend it to you. I can't wait to see more movies kind of like this, maybe from the same actors. I mean, it sets an example that I really want to see more of. And yeah, thank you all for watching, and I look forward to next week. So leave in the comments about what you thought if you decide to watch this, and I'll talk to you all next week. Bye.